Good morning, everyone. Today is our last session for the subject on economics. Earlier we had the accounts classes, and the last classes we're dealing with statistics. The last day, we'll definitely miss you all because I had a great session with you all in both the subjects of accounts and economics, and having such a class of students is definitely a good opportunity for ICSI. We're going to have great company secretaries in the coming years. So we wish you, at the very beginning of this session, I wish you all great career and great lives ahead. Wish you all rocking careers. So we'll start with the statistics. You know, it's a 20 marks question, and though statistics is an difficult subject, we'll have a lot of theoretical questions coming up in the exams. Obviously, there will be practical applied questions in the different topics, but we'll also have theoretical questions. He's saying that we cannot hear you. Check. Nana Jagdish, I think you need to check your audio settings. Someone is responding that yes, I'm audible. Others, Nana Jagdish, obviously I cannot hear you because we have muted all the participants. Chat in the chat box. Other participants, please respond if you're able to hear me. Okay. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you for the response. So, first thing, thank you. Statistics is derived from Latin word status. We must know these basic things for MCQ examination. Statistics is based from the Latin word status, and status means the political state. The word status means if you're having the physical copy of your study material, you should open it up and should underline these portions. Obviously, this word is also the other languages like German, the French, the way we bother about the words. We all know in statistics we're dealing with numbers. Suppose we have to do any analysis of the rising COVID cases in the country. So in order to make some decisions, in order to arrive at some decision, the government needs to collect data from the different regions. Like we find that the cases are rising constantly in some parts of the country. How does the government arrive at those things? Obviously, it arrives at after collecting the relevant data from the different sources. Again, we find that this many people or this percentage of the affected people are losing their lives who are actually having some disease. Say someone is having a lung infection or having a problem or a sugar patient, and the death rate is more in those cases. How does the government arrive at these figures? Obviously, these are after collecting data from different sources, putting them in different forms and bringing out conclusions. That is how stats helps us. Right. Now, coming to the definition of statistics, They're basically with two types of definitions. One is the singular sense, and one is in the plural sense. In the plural sense, statistics deal with numbers. That is defined in the plural sense, and the singular sense, statistics refers to methods. So here, in the second paragraph, towards the end, you find there's the word statistics is basically using two senses: data and statistical method. Go down to the next paragraph. Statistics in the sense of numerical data basically refers to quantitative aspects and is in the form of numerical data. Statistics as statistical method refers to a body of knowledge which contains statistical principles and methods used for collection, organization, presentation, analysis, and the interpretation of data. It is a branch of scientific methods used for dealing with those phenomena which can be described numerically, either by measurement or by quantity. So basically, it's used in two senses. One is in the form of data, there's a plural sense, and one is in the form of methods, that is a sense, science. You can go through these definitions. If we go down after the definitions, this paragraph, that all the above mentioned definitions are narrow in scope. These definitions restrict the scope of statistics to facts to statement. According to modern thinkers, the scope of the science of statistics is considerably wide today, is applicable to almost anything worth mentioning, such as biology, geography, economics, commerce, etc. In a sense, our definitions are incomplete without because of the poor coverage. Why? Because in the above definitions, it is used basically in the definition by as if it's used with the government. So that's one limitation. Next, and characteristics. If we go by the characteristics or definition of statistics, is obviously an aggregate of facts, and statistics must relate to an aggregate of facts. A single figure, even though numerically expressed, cannot be called statistics because such figures are unrelated and cannot be compared. Hence, we cannot draw any conclusions out of it. For instance, a single figure, actually, suppose we're dealing only with the height of a student or the marks of a student in a class in any particular subject, as example is given. That is not statistics, unless until it is an aggregation, a collection of facts. Suppose we're talking of the height of all the 40 students in a class, then we can draw some conclusions. Then that is statistical facts. So it is not a single, it is not datum, it's not a single data, but it's a collection of data, it's an aggregation of facts. Its effective causes, generally speaking, statistical facts are not traceable to single factor. First, we'll go down through the study material a bit, and then I'll move on to the MCQs from an examination perspective. Right. So first we'll have a bit of the critical and other portions from the study material. Then we'll go down to the MCQs as we have been doing in other classes. So statistics are commonly used in by multiple factors same time. For example, price of a particular commodity are affected by a number of factors such as supply, demand, import, export, distribution, level, circulation, price, etc. In natural sciences like physics and chemistry, it's possible to isolate the effect of various factors of a particular item, but it is very difficult to do so in social science. Right? So any factor figures are affected by multiple reasons. Next feature, numerically expressed. It is only the numerical data which constitutes statistics. Any qualitative expressions such as rich, poor, bad, these are basically not statistics. It's based upon numerical data. We cannot say if a boy is intelligent or it's an average intelligent. That cannot be part of statistics. We need, suppose he's scoring last 10 years for student, that can be 6. For the marks scored by the class of students, that can be called statistics. So it's not qualitative, but it's basically quantitative. Enumerative, estimative, it can be collected either action or by estimation. How come? Suppose if we say that there are 40 students in a class, that is by enumeration. Because there has to be 40 students. But if you say in an election rally of a politician, in an election rally for politicians, there were 3 lakh people. Now, that is not exact counting. That is an estimation. So, in case where the scope of inquiry is very large, enumeration is not advisable because it involves high cost and is also time consuming. Obviously, in such cases, data is estimated by using the power, which is sampling and estimation. In the case of lesson data, we use the enumeration method. Degree of accuracy, obviously, statistics cannot be 100% accurate. Yeah. Degree of accuracy. Statistical data collected only with a reasonable degree of accuracy. The data which are collected by enumeration are supposed to be accurate and precise, but it's not so in the case of estimation. In the case of enumeration, it has to be 100% precise. But in the case of estimation, it will be not exact. The degree of accuracy of estimated value largely depends on the nature and the purpose of inquiry. There cannot be a uniform standard of accuracy for all types of inquiries. For example, the height of students of class being measured is all right if measurement is correct to a centimeter. But if measuring the distance between 2 places, Delhi and Calcutta, the difference of few kilometers may be ignored. That depends how much we can. It is a manner. Predetermined purpose. Statistical data are collected with some predetermined purpose. Then only the data collected can be exact and will solve the purpose of the inquiry. And obviously, the attributes are placed in relation to each other. And as a method, that is in a singular sense, the definition are given. Just need to go through. Here you should know this one. That's Croxton and Gautam have given more satisfactory and acceptable definition. There can be a discussion on this motion. Stages of statistical inquiry. How do we go ahead with developing a statistical data, and how do we go ahead with inquiry? First, we need to collect the facts, collection of data. Collection of data constitutes one of the most important aspects of statistical inquiry. In this stage, the relevant data collected from various sources. The sources of data may be primary and secondary. The primary source of data and the secondary sources. Primary source of what will be later on are those sources where data is collected directly. Some people are saying not audible. It's audible at my end. I think my perfect and my system is showing. Some people are saying it's audible, but people are saying that it's not audible. I think now it's okay now. Thank you, Nishta. Thank you, Yash. Thank you for the response. So, primary source of data are when we ourselves are collecting the data through investigators or enumerators for a particular purpose or query. Suppose if I am making a study on the students of a particular class, then I may myself or through investigators or enumerators and collect questionnaires from the students directly. That's a primary. However, what about secondary? In the secondary source, suppose if I'm going to prepare a study on the students of class 10 across the length and breadth of the state, or suppose across the length and breadth of the country, I cannot go personally. Then I'll have to collect data available from the schools of an institutions from the colleges. Then that becomes a secondary source of data when I'm collecting from them. Available with them, and I'm relying upon that data, that becomes a secondary source of data. That's what's mentioned over here. that the source of data may be primary or secondary. In the case of primary data, data are usually collected by an investigator or an agency. On the other hand, the data published or unpublished, remember it's published or unpublished, which have already been collected and processed by an agency or person and taken over from there and used by any other agency for their statistical work are termed as secondary. The data published in the newspapers, in the journals, in the magazines, that is a secondary source of data. Or the data available in the schools, and if on request I get that data from making some study, that is a secondary data because I'm relying upon the data collected or already in possession with someone else. The data of the school is unpublished. Here, two things to mention: published and unpublished. Published is which is already available in the newspapers, the magazines, the journals, on the websites, in the public domain. And unpublished is which is available with some agency. Organization present the first stages for a statistical inquiry. The first was the collection of data. The second, there's no disturbance here at my end. It's absolute silent zone. I don't understand why some disturbance is coming. Organization, the presentation of the numerical data. Second stage. Organization presentation data is the second important stage of the statistical inquiry. Generally, the secondary data are available in organized form. Secondary data is available in the organized form because they've already been collected by some agency. But primary data collected through survey in the raw form needs their organization. We need to organize it. Some of the important components of organization data: editing, classification, tabulation, etc. In the part of editing, we may have omit some data which is inconsistent with our study, right? Then we have to put them in a kind of table. Analysis of the numerical data. In this phase of statistical inquiry, the numerical data after collection, organization, and presentation is analyzed in order to have a deep understanding of the subject matter. Here we'll have to use maybe the averages, mean, mode, median, the center tendency, dispersion, skewness, probability, correlation, regression, and other, the extrapolation, the interpolation. We'll have to use the different techniques, maybe, index number and all those portions to simplify the data. There's an analysis. And we have to maybe because of that portion as well. Interpretation of the numerical data. The interpretation of the data refers to drawing inferences or interpretation of conclusions from the given data. The interpretation of data is the most sensitive and difficult task. Which requires high degree of skill, experience, and the common sense and balanced judgment on the part of the investigator. If the data is misinterpreted, it may lead to misleading conclusions, which results in waste of time and obviously resources, including money as well. Importance and the functions. Obviously, it has a high degree of importance, whether it's for the government. Originally, in the earlier stages of human civilization, statistics was used basically in emperors for their purpose, that is better stat. And later on, now it is used to develop economic laws, like the laws of economics. Earlier, the laws of law of demand, and all those laws were developed by the deductive methods. Because at that time, statistics as a subject was not developed. But later on, nowadays, whatever laws are developed, they are based upon the inductive methods. That is where data are collected, they're interpreted, and then the laws are made. So statistics is useful not only for the government, but also in the several other branches of study, including our current subject of economics. So second is simplification in the understandable form. Have to present it in a simple form such that ordinary people can understand the ultimate results. It facilitates comparison. Comparison in what sense? Suppose comparison of this COVID situation of India and suppose UK. The statistics which you have collected helps us. How come? That we know that the death rate in India is much lower as compared to the nations of the world. Now, how can we arrive at such conclusions based on statistics? Enrich the individual knowledge and experience. Statistics is science which provides opportunities to individuals to enrich their knowledge and experience. This will establish fact that statistics, with the help of noble techniques and sound methodology, has opened the new vistas of knowledge which was closed to mankind otherwise. In a sense, statistics has proved such a master key to mankind that we can use it anywhere and can study any problems and the right terms. It helps in formulation of policies, whether for the government, whether for the business organizations, on any aspects of, say, the government. for taxation, for law, for pollution, any other matter. Business forecasting, which helps a lot the businessmen in developing their policies. Forecasting means the process of predicting the future events that will significantly affect the functioning of the enterprise. Government and business units need forecasting for designing the better plans and policies to use existing resources optimally. And framing and testing hypothesis, strategy also helps to formulate hypothesis and to test its validity and subsequently for developing the sound theories. So these portions you should read very meticulously for an MCQ examination. Functions of statistics, health and comparison, we already discussed about it. Formulation of policies we discussed. Testing hypothesis we discussed. Like how does the increase of bank rate, if we increase the bank rate that controls the inflation, that can be tested by the statistical methods. That in the past, what would happen whenever we increase the bank rate, how much was the inflation under control? So that can be checked by the help of statistics. Business prediction, we discussed, presentation data. Obviously, in any business meeting, whenever you're going to discuss some strategies, the data has to be put in a statistical form within the form of the pie chart, the histogram, like the bar graphs, and which makes the presentation meaningful and helps in arriving at conclusions. So, statistics, science or an art. Definitely, it's both a science and an art. The science and science is based upon certain laws. As an art because it has its day-to-day application. We have discussed so far. It's used in all the different branches of study. So let's statistics both a science and an art. I'm not discussing this two divisions. This is again something important to understand the different divisions of statistics. One is descriptive statistics. Descriptive statistics deals with the numerical data. These data represent observations obtained either through counting or through some measurement process. They may define an entire population or universe and may be derived through some procedure. In the event, they represent the raw material of any subsequent statistical processing and means themselves to answer a particular question or problem. Descriptive statistics include the techniques such as collection, the tabulation of data, which you must have done in the practice, averages of the measures of central tendency, index number, dispersion, skewness, which help in summarizing and describing the main features of data. It also focuses attention on characteristic data which on account of its huge size is kept attention of users. Applied statistics, where it is the division of statistics is concerned. This division of statistics is concerned with the application of statistical methods and techniques to specific problems or facts of real-life situation. Some of the important techniques which consider applied statistics are sample survey, quality control, quantitative analysis of the business decisions, index numbers, etc. For the purpose of business forecasting, we use this portion of applied statistics. For example, what will be the impact on, say, the demand for ice creams in the coming season, right? Because of this COVID situation, what impact on the demand for the garments, right? That is a part of the applied statistics. And inferential statistics, again, it covers those methods and techniques of statistics are used to draw conclusions, statistical inference about the parameters of population on the basis of estimates. Similarly, the hypothesis in regard to characteristics of sample is tested on the basis of population parameters. I'll tell you one thing, these theoretical portions are very often ignored by the students, and a lot of questions to come up from the theoretical portions, we need to put a proper stress on the theoretical part. Application of statistics, how it is used by the government, by the state authorities, is indispensable. It's mentioned over here, whether it's for using for the agricultural, for agriculture, for the industry, for calculating the data related unemployment, anything. Economics, we discussed that nowadays whatever laws are evolved, they're using the inductive methods. That is the statistical methods. I'm not going to the details portions. Government and industry we discussed. It's used day in and day out with top level management by the businessmen in discussing, in planning, in devising the pricing strategies and other things regarding the quality control, like the number of defectives in a particular batch. But that is used in statistics. Social science and natural sciences, statistics has a vast application in social sciences. For example, for calculating the mortality rates, the infant mortality rate, the maternal mortality rates, calculating the increase in population, and all those portions require statistics. In biology and medicine also, it's required for testing of drugs. Like for the last so many months, we found that the COVID-19 vaccine is about to come. It cannot come in one shot. There has to be a lot of statistics has to be done back. Results have to be integrated. Then only the vaccine can be available for the public use. And earlier in the accounts classes, the economics of process questions which are given in between the topics and even at the end of the study making will be very important. Laws of statistics. I'm not going to this portion. This is this one and limitations. Limitations of statistics, since it is dealing only with the quantitative data, not aspects. Like suppose we're dealing with the marks of a student, we're not dealing with his intelligence, with his honesty, with his efficiency, we're not dealing with that. We are dealing not with an individual, but we're dealing with groups. There's one limitation. There's an it's based upon averages. The averages may not be applicable to a particular individual, right? That may be applicable to common masses, but not to every individual. Misuse, yes, it's misused in a lot of senses by the companies in promoting their products. I'm not undermining any product, but they say height increases and by so much, and they are also showing the data. It's all manipulated, all misused. We all understand those facts, right? So, if selfish and ulterior motives data were used by the different companies in marketing purposes, and people do rely on that. Statistics deal with the figures which are innocent by themselves and do not appear on their face. The level can be easily distorted, manipulated by dishonest politicians or unscrupulous people for the selfish motives. Right. Next. Distrust. It can prove anything on all those portions. You can just go through that people lack confidence in the statistical data. You know why? Because people misuse it. That is a basic reason for this topic, basically of distrust. Next. Now comes the disposal, collection, and the interpretation of statistics. We discuss about the primary data and the secondary data. The secondary sources of data, basically, when we said about the published data. Someone's mentioned something. Yes, practically, obviously, the statement is correct. Published sources, data published by the different sources like by RBI, by SEBI, by the stock exchanges, by the WHO in the current scenario we're seeing every day, by the WHO, by the UNO, all those portions, and unpublished sources. Those data which are held by the individuals or by the Indian companies, by the institutions, which are unpublished, but which we can collect on request. A distinction between the two sources. Obviously, collection of primary data is too costly because one-to-one you'll have to go on sites and time consuming, but secondary sources are less time consuming and they are less costly. However, primary sources, the data collection will be more reliable because that would be exactly as per the purpose of the inquiry. The secondary sources will not be that reliable because that has been collected by someone else and we are relying upon our data. So these are the kind of differences here. Choice of data obviously depends upon a lot of purposes, a lot of factors, one of which is the purpose, cost, the time involved. Precautions in the use of secondary data. You can just go through these portions as well. Now, coming to this vital portion of methods of collecting primary data. How are primary data collected? First is direct personal interview. Direct personal interview means either you yourself or investigators and enumerators on your behalf will go and collect. Suppose if you want to know about any data for your locality, then you can go on door-to-door survey the people. That is a direct personal interview. Under this method, investigators personally visit the respondents, ask them the questions pertaining to the inquiry, and collect the desired information. The information, the data so collected from such type of interviews is information. It's obviously highly accurate and reliable, and where you can have a confidence on the data collected, but it's costly and time consuming. Right? Indirect investigation. Now, suppose in the direct and indirect, how can the difference? Suppose if I want to collect data about workers working in the jute fields, right? And direct method is when I'm going and speaking to the workers directly. And indirect is when I'm collecting data from the jute mill company, from the management of the company. That is when I'm collecting data about the workers from, there is an indirect investigation. Now, obviously, this is required. Suppose if I want to make analysis of the workers working in the cotton textile industry in Maharashtra, then it is not possible to go to each and every textile mill and speak to every worker. Rather, speaking to the owners of the few of the jute mills or the cotton mills is sufficient. This is indirect investigation. So the merits and demerits, we just need to go through. Third, from the local agencies or the correspondence. According to this method, the correspondence of local agencies in different regions collect the required information their own way and subsequently submit the reports or transmit the information to the central office where data is processed and finally analyzed. This method of collecting information is usually adopted by newspaper agencies which require periodical information in areas like sports, economic trends, markets, law and order, etc. Mailed question. Mailed question method, maybe you the surveys to the Google Forms, which is now the most recent over these years. Earlier, it was in the papers, which maybe as a student you might have faced in your school. We face regularly questions coming up on the mail. This method is applicable when you want to collect data from the literate people. Obviously, you cannot depend upon this method when your target segment is the illiterate people. Right. This method is less time consuming, less costly, but can be applicable only when we are dealing with an educated segment of the literate segment of the population. For this method, a well-designed question is mailed to the informants, maybe it's through the mail, Google Forms, with the request to fill it up and return the same within the specific time schedule. It is pointed out in the covering letter to the respondents that this then the question will be kept strictly confidential. The investigators send questionnaires along with the self-address envelope. This again in the physical form. Earlier it was in the physical. When we used to get through posts, through the ordinary post, we used to get the physical copies of the questionnaire. We have to fill it up. We have to send it. And for sending for easiness, they used to send a self-address envelope, but this is now no longer applicable. This is again a bit costly now. So in the prevalent knowledge and the base environment and investigating, we also email the questionnaire, this also mentioned. It's most economical method in terms of time and manpower. It can be used more effective in cases with scope inquiry is very wide and extensive. And direct information from respondents leaves less scope for personal bias. It does not work emeritus when the electorate, right? And but there's one drawback again. Non-responses are very high. Very often the people may not like to respond. People may not like to take the pain to respond to such questions. Next, the scheduler question is sent to enumerators in this method inquiry. The trained enumerators personally visits the informants and explain the objectives inquiry, ask questions, and record their replies. Telephonic survey to the telephonic methods. Obviously, it's more convenient, less time consuming, but it's very subjective. Now comes a sample and the census investigation. Census and the sample investigation are the two popular approaches used in statistics to collect the primary data. And the census or the complete enumeration method. Census or the complete enumeration method, data collected for each and every unit of the population or universe, which is a complete set of items which are of interest in any particular situation. For example, if the marks obtained by all the students, be honors, economics, or BU, or recorded finance, we call a census investigation. We'll give the entire set of the students. This method is generally recommended in those cases where the area of investigation is limited and requires intensive examination and study of the population. Merits and demerits, obviously a bit costly. Sample investigation, where we're not dealing with the entire population, but with a part of it, with a few of the students, not all the students of BU, but a few students of BU. Then that is sample investigation. On the other hand, sample investigation refers to process of learning about population, the basis of sample drawn from it. To be more precise, in sampling technique, instead of every item in the universe, only a part of the universe is studied, not the entire, and conclusion drawn on the same basis for the entire universe. The basic objective of collection, analysis, sample investigations to reveal certain characteristics of the population. Obviously, the success of the study based upon this would depend upon how well sample has been devised. Like how well the sampling was versus selecting the sample, collecting information. This is the main steps. Now, here happens, manipulation works a lot. When you said the statistics used for the people to misuse the data. Suppose if you're talking of the entire West Bengal region, if I want some study, I'll pick up sample from those areas, from those pockets of the state, which are favorable to my study. And I ignore those areas which should be giving me unfavorable results. So obviously less costly than the census method, it's less time consuming, but there can be a lot of errors, which you call them random errors or sampling errors, because in order to make it more effective, the sampling should be proper. Often there's a problem because of the character of the population. Distinction, you can go through this. Obviously, accuracy will not be 100% sample investigation. Now, the presentation of data versus classification. Data. Classification can be based upon several factors, maybe geographical classification. There's a number of students pursuing CS course across the country. Now, if you want to make a data that maybe, that may help us find out that there are certain areas of the country from which there are very few students, or there are no students who are pursuing the course. Now, that will help the institute working out that we need to have career awareness programs, awareness stations in the institutions across those schools in that area. Whereas many of you have joined the CS course because of the periodist programs in the different schools. Next is again some kind of representation of data. It can be logical classification in terms of the years, qualitative classification in the sense that out of the population, how many are blind, non-blind, and out of blind, how many male, how many female. And again, out of those, how many smoker, non-smoker. Now that can help us find out some conclusions. Quantitative classification, tabulation. I hope you have done those different tables. Table has different parts. You must know this. How many parts of the table are there, and different parts of the table. Yes, Karthika, that's right. There are 7 parts. Next. Now, this portion is also you need to do this for a good statistical table. Like how are the presentation done? This frequency table, marks, right? That is based on the marks 1, 2, 3, 4, and then crossing the line. So we can get the frequency like in the first, the number of rooms in the house, the talibas. The first one that shows that there are 12. How come 12 is 5, 5, and right? And this is based upon this discrete the discrete frequency distribution we have created from this table. And portions of class boundaries, the class marks, the class intervals. These portions, you must work out practicals on these portions. The upper class boundary, the lower class boundary, and when we are having the unequal class marks, open-ended class, the closed-ended class. Moving on, I'll just take up a few MCQs from these portions just very quickly. Then diagrammatic presentation of data. This portion, the line diagrams, how the line diagrams are drawn across a graph paper. Then simple bar diagrams, multiple bar diagrams showing different cases. Then chart. Pie chart is nothing but an alternative to the bar diagrams, right? Obviously, picking up the entire practical portion in this crash course is not possible. Like we did in accounts, we dealt with the MCQs in economics also. So we'll have to go in graphic presentation, putting it across the 4-pane graph with a suitable title. One second. Okay. Karthik, you just said you're from a basic, from a science background, and I'm sorry it will not be possible in this short duration, of just 2 hours to get that idea of the entire. And therefore, yeah, users comes, we have tried to pick up in a way that to focus the important aspects and to give an overview of the entire thing. We go over the histograms. Like Karthika said, you're from a science background. Try to give a little bit of overview. Thanks for the information. Histogram is a graph of the good frequency. As someone said, how to give tips. They remember things a long time. It's reading and revision you have to do. You'll have to revise the things properly to memorize and put it retain for a long time. Not particularly statistics, that's still interesting because it's a lot of practical. That question would have been for economics. Histogram is frequency distribution in which class intervals are plotted on the x-axis and their respective frequency on the y-axis. On each class interval, a rectangle. We create a rectangle, right? And we create a histogram charts. Like you can see this example. Like class interval is 5 to 10, and we have 15 observations coming in that group. From 10 to 15, we have 25 frequencies coming, from 15 to 20 to 30, and so on. So how is that plotted? It's very easy. We are plotting the frequency on the OI axis and the class interval along the OX axis, and just measuring, we are plotting it. We are having the rectangles drawn. So it shows that in 35 to 40, we are having just 10 observations. So that can be visible from the table itself, but when you're plotting it in a graph, in a histogram, that becomes a more presentable form and helps for the analysis in a more faster way. I'll pick up a bit of multiple choice questions. Just wait 1 second. I'll change the screen. Just 1 minute. I hope the screen is visible. Yeah. Shivani, I'll definitely give the tips to remember for long-term background. I'll definitely give it. The screen is visible. Thank you for this. I hope now it should be more clearly visible. I will enlarge the screen for you. It's the greatest contribution is that of, again, this first question. I hope now you will get someone is saying that's a why ready material. Why it was important? Because we as teachers, as educators, by experience, we know that what is the drawback of the loophole of the students. And here, batch was organized by ICSI for the first time. And as I said in the conference, we're fortunate enough that we're having such sessions. We don't have such a free webinars for the students. The first question itself, the very basic question, and I got a lot of wrong answers to it. One person right now has given the right answer. It's mathematicians. Neha Mittal perhaps has given the right answer. Yes, it's mathematician. Just one second. What we zoomed it? Mister, I've already zoomed. So I just want to give an example that because of lack of attention, the theoretical part, you have to focus on the theory. Please remember, and in the earlier sessions, I said repeatedly, do focus on the study material provided by the institute. A lot of things which miss out because of not studying the study material. So, in the development of statistical methods, the greatest contribution is that of mathematicians. The right answer. Next, nationality of a student is matched. It is an attribute or a continuous variable or a discrete variable. Nationality of a student is an attribute. It's not a discrete variable. It's an attribute. It's an attribute. These portions again, I'll tell you one thing. I've picked up the MCQs from the study material itself, from the different. You need to read the entire material properly. Next, number 3, statistics defined in terms of numerical data. In terms of numerical data, it is defined in what? Singular sense or the plural sense. And I discussed it at the very beginning. It is in the plural sense is the right answer. Not singular. I discussed singular sense means the methods. Dear students, again, do pay attention to the theoretical part. I was reading out from the theoretical part with the purpose deal with the institute map. I like these two questions again. One was wrong, two went wrong by many of you. 3 and 4, statistics is defined in terms of numerical data. At the beginning of the class, we discussed. In terms of numerical data, when you're discussing it, that is a plural sense. And we're talking of statistical methods. That is the definition of statistics in a singular sense. So, Shivani, I didn't get a question. Next, number 3. No, sorry, number 5. Please read the question properly. Number 5. Try to answer. Number 5. Statistics can, yes, neither prove nor disprove anything. It is just a tool. Good answer coming up for number 5. Number 4, again, someone answered wrong. Number 4 says, in a singular sense, statistics means the statistical method. Already said. Next, number 6. Number 6. Michigan, I didn't understand Tamil. Number 6. An attribute is a qualitative characteristic. Correct answer coming up. Very good. Number 7. Let us see this. How many people will answer this one? Number 7. An Indian statistician who has made significant contribution in the development of statistics is, yes, some people again went wrong. It's P.C. Mahalanobis. I hope you remember the name of P.C. Mahalanobis in economics even. plan, the Malmatis model was named after him. He had made a lot of contribution to the development of statistics. So, 7 is A. Uh, Good response coming from the students. Just 1 second. Uh, 8. Statistics can be best described as obviously both science and an art. So it's both A and B. Yes. Question 8, the answer is C. It's both science and. Number 9. Uh, how come such answers are coming up? Sorry. Wait. Number 9. Yes, Mahinur and there's only some of you are right, again some people are wrong. Why smaller? The larger the size of sample, the more reliable is the result. More reliable result. Now this portion gets from that sample, census method, the sampling method, the merits from demerits. You'll be able to answer these questions. The larger the size of sample, the more reliable will be the result. Yeah. Next, primary data is number 10. Primary data is, yes, correct answer. Yes, Alvin Stanley Nehamathu. Collection of original data for the first time. Shivani, yes, that's the right answer. Drinking habits of a person is, what is that? That's an attribute, a variable, a discrete variable, or continuous variable. Yes, Mahinur, some of you is the right answer. It's an attribute. Drinking habit of a person is an attribute. It's not a discrete variable or continuous variable. Next. Meaning of livelihood status is number 12. Number 12. Yes. Yash Gupta. Somebody given the right answer by Shivani Pal. It's a political stat. Some of you went wrong. The meaning of status is political stat. It's not political science. It's political. It's not. In answering for an examination, as earlier I said, you have to be very careful over here. I want to use my statement again. Next, the branch number 13. The branch of statistics that draws conclusions that extend beyond the immediate data alone. Is what? Number 13. Good. Inferential statistics. Because we are drawing inferences from that. So we are not going only from the immediate data, but we are going far away. We're drawing conclusions. In conclusions, that is inferences we are drawing. It is inferential statistics. 14. Which of the following is not a characteristic of statistics? Yes. No, Shivam, it was wrong. It's unsystematic manner. Yeah, most of you are correct. Very good. Going. It's unsystematic manner. Next. 15. Business forecasting is done with the help of. Business forecasting is done with the help of. Alvin, you're doing really good today. It's. I'll wait for some others to answer. Yes, some of you give a good answer again. It's A. Business forecasting is done with the help of inductive statistics. It's not inferential, it's inductive statistics. 16. The branch of statistics that deals with generalizations, predictions, estimations, and decisions from data initially prepared S115, you can answer this as well. Obviously, it is also inductive statistics. With generalizations, predictions, estimations, and decisions from a given data, when you're collecting all these things, that is a part of your inductive statistics. That is the branches of statistics. You need to go through those questions carefully, right? Uh, Next one, 17. Marks of a student is an example of marks of a student is an example. Viva, you said what is inductive statistics? I'll again come up to that question. The answer is a continuous variable. It is a continuous. Sorry, it's not attribute. It's not that. It's a continuous variable. Marks of a student is an example of continuous variable. Annual income of a person is an example of discrete variable. Annual income, when you're talking of income of a person over a year, right, that is a discrete variable. Uh, 1 second. Next, 19. The most accurate mode of data presentation. The most accurate mode of data presentation. Accurate mode is which one? Yes, Nayana, Jagdish, Neha Mittal, that is the tabulation. These are the finer points are to be studied meticulously. Because since the common knowledge, people accept, yeah, diagrammatic is a most accurate, but not that. When we go through the theory, in-depth knowledge, practical paper, we often jump directly to the practicals and we ignore the theoretical part. But in MCQ examination, you can find more theoretical questions. Like tabulation is the most accurate mode of data presentation is correct answer. Uh, 20. Sorry. Table has, yes, none of these. It has 7 parts. Earlier. Yeah, none of these, correct? A table is, what is the stub of a table? Anyone? Let me see this portion. And by experience, we find that people, are able to answer these questions. Anyway, what is the stub of a table? What is stub of a table? No answer as yet. Are we Google? Are you trying to find out on Google? Yes, middle layer was correct. Is a left part of the table describing the rules. And these questions I'll just show you are straight away from your study material. I'll just show you once. Straight. Is the screen of the study material visible? Oh, my MCQs are visible. No, it's not visible. I understand. Wait. Uh, I'll just change the screen. Wait. I got it. Now, visible now? Screen not visible. Yeah, thank you. It's visible now. Just see these parts of the table is bigger. Point number four, captions and stubs. Caption stubs are heading for the vertical and the horizontal rows in the table respectively. It should be brief, concise, and self-explanatory. Captions are written in the center of the columns in small letters to economize the space, whereas stubs are written at the extreme left of the row. Now, what are these? You get again. Yeah, you can find on the left hand side the stubs. Stubs are basically they're describing the rows, and they're the left part of the table. So you must and someone is asking about inductive and the inferential statistics. So there's a question, so I'll just answer that one as well. Uh, One second. I got a question that's to explain what's the science with class. Applied statistics is what differential statistics that's here in the study between page number 225 to 26. For those portions, you can get about the inductive statistics as well. Please note on the page numbers and you can go down from there. 21, the answer was left part of the table describing the rows. 21, the answer was uh, part of the table which describes the rows. 22, the relation between two variables are shown in which diagram? The relationship between two variables are shown in which diagram? Obviously through a line diagram. Two variables are shown in line diagram, yes, but just see, many of you who have been given economics have given the answer A. It's not histogram, it's a line diagram that gives the relationship of the two variables. Next, the data collected on the height of a group of students. I hope Janvi the answer. It's line diagram. The data collected on the height of a group of students after recording the heights with a measured head. What is that? Three. How come you're giving the answer as secondary data? How is it secondary? It's primary data. The data collected on the height of a group of students after they got the heights with the measuring tape. You're correcting it directly. So it is a primary data. It is not a secondary data because we're measuring it directly. Secondary data is if we are collecting it from school, from the institution. So 23, the answer is A. 24. The quickest method to collect primary data is the quickest method for collection of the primary data. Yes, that is the the telephone interview is the correct answer. Telephonic interview. Next, 25. The quickest method, 25. Some important sources of secondary data are, anyone? International and the government sources. It's A. International and the government sources. That's the correct answer. Next one. 26. I'll scroll up. Some people requested to scroll up. Yes, 26. The best method to data collect in case of natural calamity. Now, that's personal interview method. In case of natural calamity, how have the lives of the people and what has been the economic losses? For that purpose, the best is to collect the data personally. That's a personal interview method. That's the correct answer. Next, the number of observations falling within a class is called the number of observations. I'm sure most of you have the practicals, right? But you're failing down in the theoretical part. And so, uh, my purpose of this class, of this crash course, hasn't fulfilled. I assume, I think it hasn't more useful. Because with practicals, you must be very much confident. I just picked up this portion intentionally. The number of observations falling within a class is called, yes, now people are classified as frequency. Next, 28. Frequency distribution. 27B was correct. 27 is B correct. That's 28. Frequency distribution arranges observations in increasing order or arranges observations in terms of a number of groups or relates to a measurable statistics. It's B arranges observations in terms of a number of groups. That's the right answer. Uh, it arranges observation in increasing order is obviously incorrect, completely incorrect. So if A is incorrect, D cannot be the answer. Right. Next, classes with zero frequencies are called 39. Classes with zero frequencies are called empty class. It's empty class is the correct answer. Next, 30. So, an area diagram is, what is an area diagram? Yes, Shri is correct. The first right answer I got. It's histograms are area diagrams. Next, 31. An approximate idea of the shape of frequency curve is given by. An approximate idea of the shape of a frequency curve is given by. Let me giving 31. Frequency polygon is the correct answer. Frequency polygon gives an approximate idea of the shape of the frequency curve. Yes, it's B. Frequency polygon. Some people are really being very quick. With the right answers, that's very good. The most common form of diagrammatic representation for group frequency distribution. For the group frequency is the most common form of diagrammatic representation. Very good. Histogram is the correct answer. Is the correct answer. Correct. Three. Most values which should ever be included in class interval are all. Most extreme values which would ever be included in class interval are all. Yes, Ankita Kumari and someone else. The answer, this is class boundaries. Is the correct answer. Next, the value exactly at the middle of a class interval. Very good. The value exactly at the middle of class interval is called by solving the practical portion, these things are required. The value exactly at the middle of a class interval is called its class mark as well as mid value is called both A and B. Its mid value as well as class mark is both A and B. 35. For a particular class boundary, the less than cumulative frequency adds up to what? 35. For a particular class boundary, the less than cumulative frequency adds up to what? Yes, that's total frequency. That is total frequency. For a particular class boundary, cumulative frequency adds up to the total frequency. Next, with when one end of a class is not specified. 36. When one end of a class is not specified, find the answer. Vanchika, that's not both. When one end of a class is not specified, the class is called open-ended class. We have done all those class boundaries and all those portions. So if one end is not specified, we call it an open-ended class. 37. The lower extreme point of a class is called the lower extreme point of a class is called, yeah, here it's, now you're stuck here, two options, lower class limit or lower class boundary. Many of you don't mind you're giving guesses. We've got a lot of time today postponement examinations. Prepare for those areas are weak, in which you're weak, prepare for those areas in this coming months. We have got ample time because of this try to utilize the time positively. Everything has its positive and negative side as well. Well, it depends upon we human beings. How do we use our time in our the situation? How do we convert for us? The exams have a question for the month of June, not in December. In these months, plan your study, find out your weak areas, then simply make a SWOT analysis. Focus on those questions. A good number of wrong answers you find out. So they have good answers as well, but then there are good answers. The lower extreme point of a class is called a lower class boundary. That is for the lower class boundary, right? That's the B. It's not lower class boundary, it's lower class boundary. Median. Next again, median of the distribution. Mean, mode, median. How is median of a distribution obtained? Obviously, it's can be obtained from, yeah, C is the correct answer. There, less than type J. The negative is correct. It's a median of a distribution in between from less than type J. Next, difference between the maximum and the minimum value of a given data. Correct answer. Good. Range. The difference between is called range. Sorry. A series sets of all distinct values individually with their frequencies. A series which showing the sets of all distinct values individually with their frequencies. What is that called? Sorry, 40 is missed out. Yeah, 40 was correct. 40. The frequency of a variable is always frequency of a variable is always an integer. Correct answer? Yeah, that's correct answer. I will listen that one. Next 41. A series showing the set of all distinct values individually with their frequencies is known as. Yes, I get that line and from the floor here. Frequency distribution. It's not good frequency. Some of you, it's not good frequency. It's a simple frequency distribution. A series showing the sets of all distinct values in each frequencies. There is a simple frequency distribution. Next, 42. A group of frequency is uncertain first or last. Group of frequency distribution with uncertain first or last class. A group of frequency distribution with uncertain first or the last class. We already discussed about the category. We discussed it. And class distribution. A group of frequency distribution with uncertain first or last class is known as open end class distribution. What do you see? Next. If you're interested in how a football coach divided a practice session into drills, wet training, estimation, game plans, which is the best to use, means how the entire practice session is divided into different activities, then which is the best one to use? Yes, answer coming up was right, pie chart. Pie chart is the right answer. Game series graph is not the right answer. Pie chart is the correct answer. Uh, I find very also the game. Then the guess what I know using IQ. 44. Where the field of inquiry is wide and the informants are literate, the suitable method of collecting primary data is. Aditya, we understand, and many of you explained it. perhaps a detailed experiment. 44. Where the field of inquiry is wide and the are literate. Yes. C is the correct answer. Mailed questionnaire method. When collect information and inquiry from a lot of people. Suppose I want to make a survey from company secretaries across the country. Now we are having perhaps more than 50,000. I think we are having more than 50,000 members and spread the length and breadth of the country. Now, collecting information from them by the mailed questionnaire method is the most easiest. Because obviously they're scattered across the length and breadth of the nation, and the least costly method and the least time consuming method is the mail question method. Just sending mails, question is on mail without services, without even incurring the postal expenses, or to go send across the mail, we can collect the data very easily. That is a mail question method. 45. Primary data is collected by yes, is the correct answer. Interview method, observation method, question method, all these. Next, 46. The amount of non-responses is maximum n. Yes, very good answer by the mail method again, as I discussed. For the mail question method, many people may not reply to the mails, may not reply to the questionnaires, may not fill up the questionnaires. We choose to ignore. Who will do it? So 46 is the correct answer. 47. A table showing population decline during 2001 to 2020 is an example of. This table is an example of 47. There's a temporal classification. That is called temporal classification. That's not quantitative or qualitative, it's spatial, but that's a temporal classification. 48. Which of the following methods of data collection is not suitable for the illiterate population? 48. Yes. B. Mail questionnaire method is not suitable. Those are the critical parts, right? Next. So, 49. Which of the following is essentials of a sample investigation? Essentials of a sample investigation. Yes, D. That's the correct answer. All of these. Next. 49 US correct answer. 50. So, is found graphically by. Node is found graphically by which of these? Yes, D is the correct answer. Node is found graphically by histograms. Node is found graphically by histograms. More reading graphical explanation. 51. Collection of facts and figures about the phenomenon is the most important function of. Collection of factual figures. Yes, C is the correct answer. Statistics. Secondary data is available in. Secondary data is available in. Yes, all of these is the correct answer. It's all of the above. Records and maintain a narrow agencies and this is for so which type of source? All this is verbs in which type of source? Unpublished sources. I said now the unpublished sources are the sources, the data which are held by the private companies, schools, institutions, business firms, which are not published. So it's unpublished sources. So that is A is the correct answer. Uh, it's not published, it's unpublished sources. So A is the correct answer. Next, 54. Secondary data are less costly is the correct answer. They're not that reliable, they're not that accurate, they're not that adequate. But they're less costly is the correct option. It's A. 55. Which is best for single locality inquiry. For inquiry related to a single locality, which method is best? It's direct personal interview. To send to enumerators is not correct. The direct personal interview method is the correct one for calculating or collecting the data from a single locality. We discussed this, the typical part is where the methods, merits and demerits are given. Excuse me. 56. Which in which type of method investigation is taken from a third party? In which type of method investigation is taken from a third party? Um, 56. We're talking about 56. In which type of method investigation information is taken from a third party? So obviously indirect oral interview. I hope you remember now when we're talking about the condition of the laborers working in the cotton mills in Maharashtra, and if I'm collecting the data from the mill owners, that is an indirect oral interview. But the point 55 answer was A. Vaishnavi, 55, the answer was A. 56, the answer is C, indirect oral interviews. Next. So these specific questions are from the methods of collecting the data. First, visiting is done in personal visiting is done in obviously both A and C. Direct person interview and schedule of person is sent through enumerators. Because when you're sending through enumerators, that is nothing but again personal visiting. There's also a kind of personal visit because you're sending through your agents. Uh, 1 second. Next, yeah, I'm at 58. circular chart is also known as circular chart is also known as Nano Jagdish is given the right answer. It's both A and B. Uh, Percentage chart and the pie chart both are circular charts. The percentage chart also, which the circular chart. So circular chart is both pie chart and the percentage charts, both A and B. 59. Once one yeah. The number of times each valid variable is repeated is known as give me just one moment. Yeah. So yes, the correct that is correct answer coming up for frequency. The number of times each variable of the variable each valid variable is repeated is known as frequency. Next. 16. So you may calculate it and tell me your answer for 60. Class mark is what? A is the correct answer. Class mark, we discuss the mid value. Divide the difference being 10 divided by 2. So that's 5. Class mark simply the gap divided by 2. Gap is 10 divided by 2 is 5. 61. Non-overlapping this kind of series 0 to 19, 29, 39, 42, 59. The class bar of the class 0 to 19 is obviously the mid value that is 9.5. Yeah, 61 was C. So 61 was 9.5. Yeah, 62. Sorry, 62. And 63. Try solving these solutions. The answer by Tanu was correct 22 to 26. The midpoints of the classes. Midpoints of class are 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. And the last class limits are, that is for this 24 is the midpoint. Then the last class limit for this 24, the class bound is the chapter limits 20 to 26. In this find out usual techniques. It's 24 is the correct answer. That is B. 63. The number of accidents for 7 days in a locality given below Number of accidents 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Frequency for 0, 15, 1 accident, 19, 2, 22, 3, 31, 4, 9, 5, 3, 6, 2. Ishika, for 62, you said answer is D, 22 to 26. 63. What's the number of cases when 3 or less accidents occur? That is very simple. 3 or less accidents occur. That means from 0 accident to 3 accident, you need to add up all the frequencies. So that is 15 plus 19 plus 22 plus 31. You add up all the frequencies and you get the answer. Right. 0 or less accidents occur. We just need to add up all. So you get the answer is 87. Right. Next one. 20, 64. Even if someone says that, I don't know stats, you can apply your IQ and can solve it. Let's solve this one. So when if someone says, let me don't know, try to solve it. I'll give you time, 2 minutes. Correct answer coming up. Logic is very simple. Personally, a person's earning more than 15. So, more than 15 you have in the 2 range, right? The number of person 36 and 7. That is how much? 43. And the total number of observations is 86. So 43 is what percentage of it is. Next. 65. In case of an even number of observations, which of the following is median? 65. It is an even number of observations. Make sure it's an even number of observations, then which of the following is a median? B is the correct answer. That's right. The simple average of the two used value. Simple average of the two used values, that will be the median. Not be any of these. I'm just going to give an answer any of these. Yes, Tanmay. Tanmay is giving good answers. With weighted averages, when do we use? Even in accounts, we remember in goodwill, in partnership, in goodwill calculation, we use a weighted average method. When do we use a weighted average method? When all the observations are not of equal importance. I hope you remember we use the weighted calculation when we need to pay more significance, more importance to the profits of the firm in the recent years as compared to the past years, then we normally use a weighted average method. So, weighted average are considered when all the functions of equal importance. So, 66 answer is C. It's not D. It's C. All the observations when they are of unequal importance, when some observations have more relevance, more importance, and the others have been given less importance Then we use the weights 1, 2, 3, 4. We multiply by the weights and then we get the product. Next, 67. Most commonly used measure of dispersion is not Nana. That's not the right answer. Cases, I think the right answer. The standard deviation is the correct answer. Standard deviation is the correct answer. You may find that some from ICSI hospital long time. Next, is the most commonly used measure of dispersion. Next, if the profits of the company remains the same for the last 10 months, the standard deviation of profits for these 10 months would be. If the profits of the company remains the same, that means if the observations are same, the 10 months, then the standard deviation of the profits for these 10 months, standard deviation, of which the value of standard deviation would be 0 is the correct answer coming up. Correct. Next. 69. 69 was correct. It's 0. Because if all the values are same, the standard deviation, the value of standard deviation is 0. 69. If all the observations are multiplied by 2, then the new standard deviation, what is the value of the standard deviation? 69. Obviously, answer A is correct. A. The new standard should also be multiplied by 2. If all the observations are multiplied by 2, then the standard deviation would also be, the answer would be multiplied by 2. That's the answer. The new estimate will also be multiplied by 2. 70. Question as a very common thing is taught in the practicals. This is 70. A very common question while dealing with practical questions. Correct. 3 median minus 2 mean. Mode equals to 3 times the mean minus twice median minus twice mean is a mode. The relationship between mean, mode, median is this is a universal thing. Mode equals to median minus twice mean. So B. 71. 71. If each item is reduced by 15, arithmetic mean is, if each item is reduced by 15, arithmetic mean is obviously reduced by, arithmetic mean will also be reduced by 15. 72. Again, a theory question. Which of the following is a positional average? Which of the following is a positional average? The wrong answer coming up. Harmonic mean of positional average. HM. HM is called the positional average. 71 answer is A, reduced by 15. Next. 72 is A, harmonic mean. 73. There is one participant, Mati, I always asked her, she कब होगी? हो गई आप क्लास छोड़ के चले जाओ. dash is the sum of observations divided by the बाकी लोग तो बोलते हैं सर क्लास लेते रहिए. Dash is the sum of observations divided by the number of observations. 73 was the answer. 73. Yes, correct answer. Arithmetic mean is the sum of observations divided by the number of observations. AM is the correct answer. 74. Dash is a positive square root of the averages square deviations taken from the arithmetic mean. '74. Dash is a positive square root of the average square deviations taken from the AM. Standard deviation. Standard deviation. Correct answer. Next. SD is minimum. SD is minimum when taken from value of SD will be minimum when it is taken from geometric mean. When it is taken from geometric mean, the value of standard deviation would be the minimum if we are using it. Next, the square of standard deviation is known as, that is, this one is a function for everyone. 76. OMG. Yeah. SD is known as, correct. '77. A small standard deviation means high degree of uniformity is the correct answer. Standard deviation is small. That means in the observations we have a higher degree of uniformity. They're uniform in character. The variance, the differences are minimal. Next, dash is a difference between the largest and the smallest value in the series. 78. Dash is the difference between the largest and the smallest value in a series. Range was the correct answer. How come mode? Range was the correct answer. Someone said mode. Range is the correct answer. Next, 79. The most frequent number in a data. The most frequent number in a data. 79. The most frequent number in a data is known as, obviously, mode. Yeah, this was normal. And the coefficient of correlation lies between, the coefficient of correlation, that is R, lies between, obviously, -1 plus 1. How come A? It's C. Coefficient of correlation lies between -1 and +1. Wishing you all the best for your great life and wonderful careers ahead, rocking careers ahead. See you as great and good human beings and as successful company secretaries in the years to come. Once you are qualified as a CS, obviously your responsibilities will increase manifold. only earning should not be the objective. You should serve your alma mater, ICSI, as we are doing, and also to serve the nation. Wish you all the very best. Study well. This is a very great opportunity that you should got it where you can sharpen your skills in different ways, different medium, improve upon your skills, set a target of say of the ranking foundation. Don't set a target of just passing out, remember. Set your targets high. Set a target actually is very high. Aim for the stars. If you may not get the stars, maybe you'll land up in the moon. Remember the statement. Aim for the stars. If you don't reach the stars, at least you reach the moon. ICSI had tried to do the best for you all. As I said earlier, I again repeat, you all should be thankful. The entire team at ICSI, the directors, the officers who were there, and also the council, which the president, the vice president, who had taken this noble step. And this was the first time in the history that this kind of a crash course had been initiated for the benefit, for the welfare of the students. Found most of you had taken responsive. You will have that shows that you are quite well prepared. The base is more, and for executive professionals, just set your aims high that yes, not only passing out one shot, but also passing out with good marks, because that will help you in getting the management training in good corporates or with good company secretaries. That will help you sharpen your skills. And that is very important in your practical life. Thank you so much for being there in all the classes. I won't name anyone. I'll thank you all. I'll thank ICSI for providing me an opportunity early for accounts, and again, second time with the assistant for economics. The schedules were a bit tight, but I had to say yes, I'll be taking the classes. Thank you, ICSI, for this wonderful opportunity for getting in touch with the students. Thank you, Sundarishi, for Rajiv Garg, and everyone at the headquarters, including Gitanjali ma'am, and the president and the vice president, ICSI. Thank you, everyone.